The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Well, that's a somewhat dark time in our world. I seem to keep starting talks with that. I thought I'd talk a bit about faith. Well, some people are put off by the very word faith. It seems to imply a kind of blind belief in something that we're required to believe in, otherwise we don't measure up, we're not part of the group. We have to have faith in this thing. Blind belief. But as many of us know, in Buddhism, we don't do blind belief. Can you not hear us?
No. I think
I managed to honk all right. Oh, well. Anyway, as I said, some people are put off by the word faith, thinking it's a blind belief in something that we don't know what it is, but we have to believe it, otherwise we're not, proper. We don't measure up. But in Buddhism, faith is not blind belief. The Buddha never tried to force people to have faith. Can you turn me down a little bit? I feel like I'm in a tin box. There we go. That's better. Thank you. But the Buddha did say that a certain amount of faith was necessary in order to even start. You've got to have a little bit of faith just to begin. Otherwise you don't get going, If you don't have a little bit of faith in a teacher or their teaching, you can't learn from them. You've kind of closed the door on them, just with, skepticism, I don't know about this, You can't start. You can always open the door later, at any time. But it's up to each of us to open that door of faith for ourselves. Even just a little crack of faith, something to let us in. We wouldn't be here in this room. We wouldn't be listening to the Dharma talk if we didn't have a certain amount of faith in the teaching of the Buddha and all that. Well, what exactly do we have faith in? It's not always completely straightforward. Well, basically, in order to practice the Dharma, we need to have some faith that the Buddha was a person, he knew what he was talking about, he found the way to the end of suffering, and he taught this way to others. And he awakened to something beyond what we generally know in our daily mundane experience. And that he was a human being, and he was able to teach this to other human beings, and has come down to us, human beings too. And we can also follow this way and awaken to the truth for ourselves. That's what we basically think. Well, some of us might be a bit fuzzy about the last bit. Well, I'm not sure I can awaken to the truth for myself, but I'll do my best, I'll just try and be a decent person and train as best I can and follow the teachings, but awakening to the whole truth, I don't know about that. But we do our best. And as we follow the teaching of the Buddha, we realize that actually it works. It does help us with our suffering in a great many ways. And this helps us to grow our faith. To be a Buddhist is to take refuge in the three treasures, as we know, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That's an act of faith, actually, to say, I won't trust myself to these three treasures. Taking refuge in the Buddha, trusting that the person Shakyamuni was enlightened, whatever that means, we may not know, we don't know really, and that he could help other people, because he wasn't a god, he was a human being, and other people could do what he did, and they have done, they do. And taking refuge in the Buddha also means taking refuge in something greater than that historical person, something bigger that he pointed to, as he said, there is an unborn, uncreated, unchanging, undying. And if it wasn't so, there wouldn't be any end to birth, old age, sickness and death. But there is this unborn, undying, unchanging. He didn't talk about it all that much, but he pointed to it. Actually, many of his teachings, all through his teachings, is this pointing to something bigger. There's a whole book, actually, that Ajahn Bassano and Ajahn Amaro wrote, full of teachings of the Buddha that pointed to exactly this, called the island that is beyond what we know, and is full of teachings about that which is beyond what we can see. So we train ourselves in order to find this unborn, uncreated, that we also call Buddha nature, or there's other names for it, whatever we like to call it, that which is greater than we are, greater than our mundane experience, that we are trying to find for ourselves. Taking refuge in the Dharma, having faith in the teaching of the Buddha, practicing for ourselves, and seeing that it actually really does help us to transform our suffering, and eventually to realize the truth for ourselves. Taking refuge in the Sangha, trusting a teacher or those who practice the Dharma, monks or lay trainees, here we are, trusting each other, We're all infallible and imperfect like everybody else, but just trusting that the Sangha are generally trying to do their best, trying to live by the precepts, trying to practice compassion and wisdom and not do harm. We can trust that people are trying to do that, even when we fail. Well, within this refuge, these refuges, there are differences between people and how they practice faith. Some people pray to the Buddha, or they pray to a bodhisattva for help, Avalokiteshvara, Kishtagarbha. Many people pray to them for protection or help or something that they long for. For many people, this is their practice of faith, especially in the East, not so much in the West, but some in the West. Some people are not so devotional, but they have faith more in the teaching and practice, saying that it really helps them, trusting their own practice, their own experience. Sometimes people have a major experience or a small religious experience, but that helps them to have that seed of faith grow, and that is really, really helpful in nourishing faith, to have some experience for ourselves of truth, whether a small experience or a big experience. It doesn't matter. Some people completely entrust themselves to a teacher, following that teacher, and this is central to their practice, a teacher, a guru, and it can be really, really helpful for many people. Occasionally, as we know, the teacher isn't quite straight or goes off the rails a bit, or quite a bit, and this can damage a person. But for many, many people, following a teacher and making this faith in that teacher central to their practice is the best way for them. Everyone's different, And I think many of us have a combination of these: faith in a teacher, trusting the experience of our own meditation, trusting the teaching of the Buddha. All these factors, all these facets come into play for most of us, one way and another. Well, this is all great, but sometimes faith doesn't seem to come quite so easily. We have problems sometimes. Many of us have times when our practice seems kind of weak or faltering, We might have doubts about our own ability to make real progress and to realize the truth for ourselves. We compare ourselves with other people and feel that we're very slow, that we can't really do it. We seem to lack something. I think many of us feel this way. We feel everybody else is doing better than we are, But that doesn't really make much sense. If everybody else is doing better than any of us is doing, who's doing, it doesn't make any sense. It's pretty normal to have times when life is just hard, and when our training seems to be at a low ebb. I think it happens to most of us, one way and another. And we might doubt our ability to really train ourselves, make the Dharma real for ourselves. Our meditation might seem poor or weak. Everybody else is sitting so still, and here I am, a wreck. I can't sit still. I've heard it. We should be over, Even after many years, this can happen. It can be like this. Our practice of the precepts seems kind of spotty at best, and we don't feel very good about ourselves. This is self-doubt. And self-doubt actually is just doubt, If the Dharma isn't real for me, then it's not really true. If everybody else can practice it and it's good for everybody except me, that doesn't make any sense, actually. We can't say it works for everybody else except me. Well, who am I to be so important that I'm the only person who can't train? And at these times, we just need to keep going. Just to keep going, keep on doing our best. If we don't feel faith, we can still practice it. Because faith is a practice, it's not a feeling. There was a thing I just think, faith is a verb. I saw that. That's kind of nice. Practice faith. We do faith. We just keep on going, and this itself is a manifestation of faith, no matter how we may feel. Whether we feel we're faithful, whether we feel we're a mess, or just going through the motions, just to keep on going, We can nourish our faith with our meditation practice, even when we feel it's not very good. It actually still helps us. I think most of us know what happens when you don't meditate for a while. We feel terrible. Even if we thought our meditation was dreadful, when you don't do it, we feel worse. So it must be doing something, Just nourish that, Studying the Dharma, reading the scriptures, chanting the scriptures, bowing, all these things can help us in our different ways. For some people, meditation is the best thing. For some people, reading the scriptures, really helpful, Bowing is a wonderful practice of actually manifesting faith, bowing to something bigger than myself. Because faith is a form of veneration. When you have faith in the teaching of the Buddha, faith in the Buddha, we can bow to something bigger than myself, faith in that Buddha nature, bowing to that. That is actualizing faith, even when we don't feel we're doing it very well. Even if we're half distracted, just do it, just to do it with our body and do it with our heart. Even when we can't bow fully down on the ground, which many of us can't in our old age, to bow as best we can, bowing with the heart, bowing as best we can with our body. It's a real wonderful practice of actualizing faith, putting our faith into practice, whether we feel it or not, and it helps us to nourish that heart of faith. We're all part of Buddha nature, whether we like it or not, whether we feel we are or not. It doesn't make any difference in a sense, because it is the case, we are part of everything. We're all deeply connected with all other beings, whether we think we are or not. Doesn't make a difference, there we are, connected. And to practice faith is to live as though we knew these things, even when we don't feel we know them. Because on some level we do know them. In some part of us, we know there's Buddha nature there. We know there's a seed of goodness there. And we know we're connected with other beings. Thinking of the suffering going on in the world, we feel it. We don't just say, oh, well, too bad, I'm okay, I'm doing my practice. It's not like that. We feel that connection with other beings. The people we know, the people we don't know, there is that connection. And to practice faith is to live as though we knew that was so. So to treat other people with kindness, to live as deeply as we can in accordance with our own true nature. So that's why we keep to the precepts, because that is what we naturally do when we're living in accord with our true nature. Our true nature does not want to steal or lie or, all that. So to practice these things helps us to grow that seed of faith, whether we feel it or not. Going on in the dark when you don't see the way, Our roots grow in the dark. Roots don't grow in daylight. And sometimes the hard times are the ones that help us most when there's darkness, because we have to keep going. It helps us grow strong. Strong roots, which we don't see. We can't keep digging them up to have a look at them. It doesn't help. Just trusting that those roots are there, that they're growing, and that our faith is deepening. And this is how we practice faith. When you're going through a lot of fear and worry, rather than get pulled off by it, to sit still and look at it. What am I really afraid of? What am I really worried about? What's going on? Look right at it, not just say, oh, well, I'm going to practice faith, I don't have to worry about that. Look at it. Why am I worried? Is it really that bad, And to actually do that, to look clearly at our fear and worry, takes faith. And faith is the antidote to fear and worry. Just to practice faith, and fear and worry can undermine our faith. So not to get too pulled off by worry and fear, but to look at them and let them come and let them go, and to see them for what they are, because they shrink down when we look at them. When it's there in the background, it seems very big, but you look at it, it's, oh, that's not so bad. Sometimes it is bad, but you might as well look at it. It's not going to go away by ignoring it. To let things come and go by looking at them, letting them come in, letting them go out. It's normal to have fear and worry, I think. All beings are prone to fear and worry, but they don't have to rule our life, as I said. Because we want to live with courage and with patience. Things change, our world changes, our mood changes, our feelings change, our fear and worry change. They're not the most important thing. There is the unborn, undying, unchanging that underlies everything. And it is that we root ourselves in, that we entrust ourselves to, that we have faith in, that we practice faith in, whether we feel it or whether we seem to feel it or not. As I said, this is a dark time in our world, and many people feel a great despondency and sadness and despair. It affects us all. How will things ever get better? Will they get better? Will they just keep getting worse? They don't seem to be so good, And our practice might be affected by this despondency. You feel it hard to kind of keep going, And this is when we need to cultivate great patience and courage, actually, just to keep going in the midst of all conditions, to keep a bright heart as best we can with all that goes on, not to pretend it's not there, not to look away from the suffering and pretend it doesn't exist, but it's not the only thing. There's also great kindness and great joy in life, as well as suffering and sadness and darkness. Just cultivating patience and courage, practicing faith, keeping a bright heart in the midst of all conditions. This is faith, but it's not blind faith. We're not blinding ourselves to the suffering of the world or our own suffering. We're looking at it, seeing it, but not completely drowning in it. Faith goes beyond the intellect and what we can see. That's its very nature, is trusting in something we don't yet see. If we only had faith in what we could see and easily understand, it wouldn't be faith, We'd be missing an awful lot, to say the least. To keep walking on in darkness and in light. There is light too. Trusting that there's something that sustains us, that it will sustain us, and it helps us on our way. This is our practice of faith. And a dear friend told me about a passage in the Avatamsaka scripture which talks about faith. I'm going to read it, or part of it. Oops. Avatamsaka scripture, the ornamental scripture of the ornamental flower. It's big. I'm not going to read all of it. Faith is the basis of the path. Right there. It's the basis of the path. The mother of virtues. Because it really helps us to cultivate virtue, to cultivate the precepts, and nourishing and growing all good ways. Cutting away the net of doubt that we talked about, self-doubt, doubt of the teaching. Just practicing faith, keeping true to the heart. Cutting away the net of doubt, freeing from the torrent of passion, anger, desire, all that. Revealing the unsurpassed road of ultimate peace. Just practicing faith and trusting us to that great unborn, undying is the way to peace. When faith is undefiled, the mind is pure. Obliterating pride, it is the root of reverence, bowing, venerating something that's bigger than we are, the root of reverence, and it obliterates our pride. We're not the center of the universe, something bigger than us. It's the foremost wealth in the treasury of religion, being a pure hand to receive the practices, because when we have faith, we can receive the teaching in a deeper way than if we just kind of think, well, maybe not. Faith is generous, the mind not begrudging, because it's joyful and willing to give. And we offer our faith to others. It's not just my little faith, it pervades everything. Faith can joyfully enter the Buddha's teaching. Faith can increase knowledge and virtue. Faith can assure arrival at enlightenment because we're open to it. We're open to, maybe I can do this. I will do this. I am doing this practice. It's not something that's just for other people. We can do it. Faith makes the faculties pure, clear and sharp. The power of faith is strong and indestructible. And we have to work at it. Faith can annihilate the root of affliction because it helps us to understand karma, that there is something that is more than I can see. The law of karma, the law of cause and effect, helps us to bear the afflictions. It annihilates the root of affliction. It helps us to transform our karmic tendencies, so that we don't create suffering for ourselves and others. So faith can annihilate the root of affliction. Faith can turn one wholly to the virtues of Buddhahood. Faith is the unspoiled seed of virtue. Faith can grow the seed of enlightenment. Faith can increase supreme knowledge. Faith can reveal all Buddhas. Faith is most powerful, very difficult to have. It's like in all worlds, having the wondrous, wish-fulfilling pearl. We have faith. We have the wondrous, all-fulfilling, the wondrous, wish-fulfilling pearl, that jewel of faith. We can nourish it, we can hold it out for others as is good, with generosity. So, to nourish our faith, to keep on practicing it, never taking for granted this precious opportunity. Here we are, living a life of faith. Let's just keep doing it. And by doing this, it helps all of us and it helps our world. And that's our talk for the day. Thank you.